Imagine pulling into your own driveway after a long day, the familiar rumble of your Harley-Davidson echoing like a heartbeat of freedom, only to find a venomous note demanding you hide it away, like it's something shameful. That's what happened to me, Robert, a black man in a mostly white Texas suburb, when Karen, the HOA president, targeted my bike not for rules, but for the color of my skin. What started as a petty fine escalated into a battle exposing deep-seated prejudice, forcing me to fight back in ways that would shake the entire neighborhood. Stick around. You won't believe how I roared back to shut her down. In the sun-baked suburbs of Dallas, where manicured lawns stretched like green carpets under endless blue skies, I, Robert, had finally carved out my piece of the American dream. At 62, after decades as a mechanic fixing everything from rusty pickups to high-end hogs, I retired to a quiet HOA community. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. A modest ranch-style house with a wide driveway perfect for my prized 2015 Harley-Davidson Softail Slim. That bike wasn't just metal and chrome. It was my escape, a symbol of the open road I'd earned through sweat and perseverance, especially as a black man navigating a world that often tried to box me in. The neighborhood felt welcoming at first, with waves from porches and the occasional block party. But then Karen moved in next door. A white woman in her late 50s, she quickly clawed her way to HOA president, wielding bylaws like weapons. Her eyes always lingered a bit too long on me, her smiles forced and fleeting. Whispers rippled through the community, subtle at first, about keeping standards high and preserving property values. I shrugged it off, focusing on my routines, tinkering in the garage, riding my Harley on weekends, feeling the wind erase years of subtle slights. Trouble brewed quietly. One evening, as golden sunlight bathed my driveway, I noticed Karen peering over the fence, her face twisted in disapproval. Soon after, the first violation notice arrived, citing an obscure rule about vehicles and driveways. But why me? Others parked boats and RVs without issue. Deep down, I sensed it wasn't about the bike. It was about me, a black man daring to display his pride openly in her pristine world. Curiosity gnawed at me as fines loomed, setting the stage for an injustice that would test everything I stood for. Tension simmered like Texas heat as the notices piled up, each one sharper than the last. Karen's campaign against my Harley intensified, her actions laced with an undercurrent of racial bias that I couldn't ignore. I'd heard stories, inspired by real events across the South, where HOAs became tools for exclusion, fining people of color for aesthetic reasons, while turning blind eyes to white neighbors' infractions. This felt personal, a veiled attempt to push me out, to remind me I didn't quite belong. At first, I complied partially, moving the bike to the side yard under a tarp, but that only fueled her fire. Another fine arrived, $300 for visual obstruction. My blood boiled as I researched late into the night, poring over HOA documents and online forums. There it was, evidence of selective enforcement. Karen's own husband parked his faded Chevy truck openly, untouched. Other white residents flaunted ATVs and trailers, no penalties. But my Harley? Deemed unsightly and disruptive. Whispers from neighbors confirmed my suspicions. Karen had muttered about those kinds, bringing down the neighborhood, her prejudice seeping into board meetings where she rallied allies with coded language about maintaining the community's character. Emotional stakes rose as isolation set in. Friends I'd made, fellow retirees who shared my love for bikes, began distancing themselves, afraid of Karen's wrath. One evening, as I polished the Harley's chrome under the garage light, shadows of doubt crept in. This wasn't just about a motorcycle. It was an attack on my dignity, echoing the microaggressions I'd faced my whole life, from being followed in stores to overlooked for promotions. The injustice burned, fueling a quiet rage. I started documenting everything. Photos of unequal enforcement, emails from the board laced with bias, even recordings of Karen's pointed stares during her patrols. The pressure mounted when she escalated to city involvement, claiming my bike violated noise ordinances, despite it sitting silent most days. Fines climbed to $800, threatening a lien on my home. Sleepless nights followed, my mind racing with memories of my father's stories from the civil rights era, fighting for basic rights. This modern twist felt no less insidious. I confided in a lawyer friend, uncovering that Texas laws protected against discriminatory HOA practices, inspired by cases where racial profiling led to lawsuits. But Karen doubled down, organizing a petition among select neighbors to beautify the street, code for erasing signs of my presence. The emotional toll deepened. My rides, once therapeutic, now felt tainted, a reminder of the prejudice lurking beneath suburban civility. As weeks turned to months, the neighborhood divided. Some white residents sided with Karen, their support revealing unspoken alliances, while a few allies emerged, sharing their own hushed experiences of bias. The stakes heightened. I risked losing not just my bike spot, but my home, my sense of belonging. Yet, in that rising storm, a plan formed, one that would expose her racism and reclaim my roar. The air thickened with anticipation, every rev of an engine in the distance a promise of reckoning. The breaking point arrived on a sweltering afternoon, the air thick with dust and unspoken fury, as Karen's vendetta peaked in a confrontation that laid bare the raw ugliness of racial injustice. I'd gathered irrefutable evidence, a dossier of photos showing her selective fines, emails with thinly veiled racist undertones, and witness statements from neighbors who'd overheard her derogatory remarks about people like me not fitting the community's image. Inspired by real HOA scandals where discrimination led to federal scrutiny, I filed a formal complaint with the state attorney general's office, alleging civil rights violations under fair housing laws. Karen, sensing the noose tightening, went all out. She rallied the board for an emergency meeting, pushing for immediate towing of my Harley, framing it as a community safety issue. The tension was palpable as tow trucks rolled up, their engines growling like predators, while she stood triumphantly on her lawn, her face flushed with entitled victory. My heart pounded as workers hooked chains to my bike, the chrome scraping against the pavement, a symbol of everything being stripped away. In that moment, the emotional weight crashed down. This was no mere dispute. It was a microcosm of systemic racism, where a black man's pride became a target for erasure. But I didn't back down. As the tow began, I presented my lawyer's injunction, halting everything. The crowd of onlookers grew, whispers turning to gasps as I revealed the evidence publicly, projected on a screen in my driveway for all to see. Karen's facade cracked, her attempts to deflect exposing the prejudice at the core. The state investigators arrived swiftly, their presence amplifying the drama, confirming the discriminatory patterns. Fines reversed, liens lifted, and Karen faced personal penalties, her power crumbling under the weight of exposed injustice. The roar of my Harley, finally unleashed, echoed through the street, a thunderous declaration of defiance that silenced her reign forever. In the aftermath, as the dust settled and my Harley sat proudly in the driveway once more, the neighborhood transformed under the light of hard-won justice. Karen resigned in disgrace, her house soon sporting a for sale sign, a quiet exodus driven by the scandal's fallout. The HOA board, shamed into reform, updated bylaws to prevent discriminatory enforcement, inspired by the real-world impact of similar cases that sparked policy changes across Texas. I, Robert, reclaimed not just my spot, but a deeper sense of security, my rides now carrying the triumph of resilience over prejudice. The emotional scars lingered, a reminder of how racism hides in everyday rules, eroding dignity one fine at a time. Yet, sharing this story, drawn from true events, brought unexpected allies. Neighbors who apologized, some even joining me for rides, fostering a fragile unity. My revenge wasn't just roaring back, it was exposing the rot, ensuring no one else faced such targeted injustice. This tale underscores a powerful truth. Racism thrives in silence, but it crumbles under scrutiny and solidarity. In a world where HOAs can become battlegrounds for bias, standing firm reclaims more than property. It restores humanity. What if your own symbols of pride were next? Have you faced similar injustices where prejudice masked as policy tried to dim your light? Share in the comments below. Your stories could spark the next wave of change. If this moved you, like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more tales of triumph over tyranny. Remember, the road to justice starts with one defiant roar.